So firstly, welcome. Thank you everyone for joining this SAP two-part webinar series hosted by ourselves and Alteryx. This is, like I said, the second part to our series. The first part we did last week, which I'll cover and do a quick recap of. But this specific part 2 is all around solving the migration mystery. Before going into it, I just want to say my name is Wassel. I'm a data and analytics manager here at Protiviti. And for people that don't know, Protiviti are a boutique consultancy based out of our London office, and we've got offices all around the world, including the US and so on. And we historically offer services in internal audit, risk and compliance, and so on. But more recently, we've got these strong practices around technical consulting and data as well. So yeah, thank you again for joining. Like I said, this is a part 2, all around solving the migration mystery. I'm going to quickly just go over the agenda for the hour. First, I'm going to introduce our team. We've got a couple of people on the call that go through in-depth deep dive around SAP. And also we've got Michelle and Stephen that have been part of the first session, and we'll give an introduction on that as well. We also have some mentees as well. When we come onto those slides, we'll quickly show you how to log in quickly via the link or the QR code. And you also have my colleague Ayushi on the call who will paste the link within the chat. So feel free to use any of the options to quickly log in. After that, then we'll go on do a recap of webinar 1, the one covered last week. And that webinar 1 was all around demystifying data. After that, then I'll hand the baton over to Mahendra and Jitendra, who'll look at SAP and do a whole deep dive around SAP migration, all the scenarios, and you can sort of pick their brains around the expertise that they have. And lastly, then we'll summarize with the content that we've done over this session and open the floor up for some Q&A as well. On that note around Q&A, we've got the mentee that will offer you the chance to ask any questions, but I do encourage everyone to use the chat. It's quite an intimate sort of Teams call we have here. So please feel free to use the chat, tag anyone to ask any questions or issues you have during this call. Over to the next slide. So as a brief introduction, there's a lot of text on this, so I won't bore everyone with a full synopsis of each individual here. But to start off, we've got Mahendra Balasaria. Mahendra is a managing director for our EAS, our Enterprise Architecture Solutions team. He is responsible for technology consulting, risk management, and so on. And he has over 21 years of experience within business process, finance transformation, improvement, target operating model, and so on. We then have Jitendra, who's our in-house SAP specialist. Jitendra has over 25 years of experience covering a lot of the ERP business transformation programs. And we always say there's not a single question that Jitendra will know on ECC, S4HANA, SAP as a whole. So he is my go-to person anyway. You have myself. I'm a manager within the Protiviti London practice. I've got about 9-10 years within data and analytics and intelligence. I am the Alteryx SME and lead, so I develop a lot of the end-to-end workflows, doing a lot of business-wide use cases and so on. You've got then my managing director, Michelle Moody, who sets up our data and AI practice. Michelle's got 25 years experience in IT consultancy, specializing in data, governance, insights, AI, and a lot more. You've then got Stephen Rhodes, who is the senior product specialist at Alteryx. We've worked very diligently and closely with Alteryx over the last year, developing not only an amazing relationship, but also a lot of use cases and a lot of solutions based off of what we see going on in the market. Moving on to the next slide. I'm going to do a recap of our webinar 1 for those that have missed it, but just to let you know, there is a full recorded YouTube session around this. So if anyone has missed it and they want to go over the intricacies of some of the stuff that we've covered, feel free to do that. I'll get Ayushi to also drop the link directly either after this call or within the chat so people can view that as well. Webinar 1 was all around demystifying data. So the whole intention for that was all around the data wrangling, preparation, quality assurance, and reconciliation of the intricacies when it comes to data migration. We then sort of looked into unraveling the complexities around surrounding your data, insights, statistics, and thoughts. Michelle covered the sort of overview, agenda, challenges, and accelerator piece. So from an overview and agenda perspective, the main core reason why this has even become a topic and why this is a very important focus for a lot of clients at the moment is the fact that ECC, which is the SAP legacy system that a lot of clients are on, is unfortunately becoming redundant in 2027. So in 2027, ECC is no longer supported. So naturally, a lot of clients and a lot of customers have this decision to make on how to move. Now, typically, you'd move to their new sort of bright new ERP platform called S4HANA. And if that's the case, what you typically see is a 2 to 3 year journey in terms of doing that migration. Now, although it sounds very simple in terms of taking data and moving that migration piece from ECC to HANA, not only is the journey long, but there's a lot of complexities that come with it. So what Michelle covered is the fact that a lot of the SAP clients are struggling on how to do the move. There's different methods on how to do that, whether it's greenfield, brownfield, and bluefield. And this is what's going to be covered by Mahendra and Jitendra on this specific call. You have a lot of data issues with it not being in a good state. You have resource issues. It's expensive, and there's also a need to have an appetite to get it done. Now, these are sort of the main overview and agenda, but to really work towards this migration, there are some areas that you need to get right. So the first thing is around to sort of taking time to plan and review all areas to be migrated. There's also a need to do some POCs, some test runs throughout the migration to identify any issues early and fix them. There's also an onus on executives getting this and owning the success of the program. So you need a lot of stakeholders to buy in to this effort. What we also recommend is getting a trusted partner in to help that has a lot of the specialist skills required. And then the other focus that we sort of stress is the importance around change management, not to underestimate the effort required to do that. What we then sort of mention as part of the overview is what we bring to the table in terms of our accelerators. So we've built these accelerators that I'll go into shortly that kickstart your migration through these low code, no code solutions, all powered by Alteryx, and hence why we have someone like Stephen on the call. Michelle then covered over the top 5 challenges when it comes to migration. The first one being complexity. So around complexity, we talk about not having enough time and money budgeted for the migration, limited awareness of the migration options, the brown, green, and blue field options that we talk about, having a misalignment in technology and data, the skills required, the technical skills, the SAP skills, all the end-to-end skills required for the migration piece. We talked about neglecting technical intricacies and naturally that having an effect on the timeline in delivering such a migration program. And then we also talked about the resource planning issues and complexities within this. We then moved on to sort of program management, and this is the need to have comprehensive upfront planning, the need to have streamlined governance, the change management that I mentioned before, not underestimating the effort required. There's delays around typical the undefined roles within an organization. And then the challenges are then worsened by the fact that you have inadequate risk management. After that, then we stress the importance around custom code. So the 2 main issues here are the fact that ECC platforms have been modified and adapted for specific businesses over a number of different years, 5, 10, 15, if not longer years. And therefore, a lot of upfront planning and review should be done before you even began the journey. And then the second part of custom code is the fact that a lot of ECC platforms are not on the latest versions, and therefore there's the software is not up to scratch. There's a lot of effort that needs to be conducted to make sure that the platform upgrade and custom code is being tested before you do any sort of migration. The fourth point here is around testing. So as we know from a migration piece, there's a lot of testing that's required, and inadequate testing typically then reveals a lot of post-implementation defects. You've got limited test coverage that overlook critical issues. You've got validation that's hampered by insufficient testing environments. And then you've got system instability, which typically causes a lot of inadequate testing performances. The fifth point here, and I've highlighted in bold, is data, which is the core piece within the challenge that we have within migration. And the data piece comes from a couple of things: the lack of time and effort to prepare that data, the lack of understanding that data as well. And a lot of businesses don't understand the data before they're even migrating it. Naturally, because it's a legacy system, because you've got a lot of manual entry and a lot of these different fields, you've got a lot of poor quality and error data, duplicates, inconsistency, etc. And naturally, then when you are transferring the data, you've got a lot of those integrity issues. So you don't have full trust in what you're exactly migrating over. And the last bit is the inability to reconcile the data. You may have 1,000, 2,000, even 100,000 records that you're migrating over. The reconciliation effort is very, very important before moving that data over. Michelle then covered over some of the stats that we've seen within the industry, and some of those included the fact that estimated 30,000 users or clients are still undecided on what they still want to do. You got 41% of companies that lack skills within business and IT. You got 69% of clients that have multiple environments, multiple ERP systems, and therefore they naturally also have inconsistent builds. So what are the options? And these are the three things we mentioned. So the option one is you stay put on ECC. The good thing is you stay on ECC, you've got what you know and what you've been using, and you stay on that for a couple of years. However, you pay a premium for support on ECC. So the cost of staying on ECC becomes more expensive. Second option is to migrate to S4HANA. So SAP naturally will facilitate this journey and will give you a lot of the tools and technology to say, hey, move over to S4HANA. And that's something you can choose to do. But typically, I would say budget in at least 2-3 years of effort in doing so. And the third journey is migrate over to another ERP system. So even though this whole session is talking about SAP and the intricacies around it, and we talk about our accelerators, but one thing to remember is the way we've approached this is whether you're moving from one ERP to another ERP, whether it's Oracle, Microsoft Dynamics, these solutions sort of are tailored to your needs. We then talked about our productivity accelerator. So given the overview, given the challenges, given the stats, what is it that we're looking to solve? So the project objective we have here is around the risks with data. So we've identified data as being a huge core risk. And the risk comes with the redundancy and obsolete data and low quality data. But it also comes with the fact that there's a lack of selectivity around data. So if you are transferring data from an old system to a new system, you need to be able to choose exactly what you're transferring over. Otherwise, you're typically transferring over bad data and you're left with that bad data in your new system. The other difficulty with any ERP to ERP migration is the architectural differences. So even though SAP have ECC, which is the legacy system, and S4HANA, the new system, there's still a lot of architectural differences. So if you don't have the right specialist knowledge in terms of how to translate and transform your data, that then is typically a challenge. And the last bit, like I said, SAP typically will give you the tooling, give you the technology and say, hey, go ahead and do it. However, it's left for the clients to typically sit with their data, cleanse that data, transform that data, sort and do all the gathering and filling in all those little templates that SAP may typically provide. And that in itself is typically something that a lot of clients underestimate, and it goes from something that you can do in a couple of months to years because of the volume of data. So what are our data accelerators? So we've talked about the objectives. Our data accelerators are essentially these end-to-end automated workflows that take your data from the source. So in this case, ECC, take all the data that you wish to migrate, put it through a layer of transformation. So we look at obsolete data, duplicates, bad data, and so on, do some data quality, and essentially load that directly into your target system. And that can be either through writing back out to the ERP system or through loading templates that Oracle, Oracle, S4HANA, and a lot of the ERP systems typically provide. What we also look to do with these data accelerators is to do some data quality assessments. So making sure that as soon as you've plugged in your data, the business is readily available to see, okay, where are the nulls, where are the bad data, where are the missing gaps, where are the sort of focuses or attention areas for their data. The other part of our accelerators we really sort of shine light on is the ability to reconcile and simplicity. So one thing through the power of Alteryx, and this is why, like I said, we've got someone like Stephen. We use the Alteryx platform to build these workflows that are repeatable. So you build once, you don't need to do it again. And what you typically see in this is in the traditional format and in the Excel way of doing things is a lot of formulas, poor documentation. You're doing something repeatedly, months and months on end. But what we intend and have an objective to do through these accelerators is make sure they're repeatable. You can reconcile your data, And naturally, then this gives the ability for finance data teams and SAP teams to really understand the data that they're migrating. Moving on to the next slide. Now here, I'm just going to scan over this, and I guess, like I said, this has been covered in depth over the first webinar session. So what you see here is your typical extract, transform, and load ETL sort of design when you're doing migration. So on the left-hand side, you've got extract. Now, in our use case where we've got ECC, we're using the extract method and using DVW connectors, which are plugins to the Alteryx tool, to pull in our data. Alternatively, you don't need to use any connectors. You can just do manual table downloads. And we do this extraction for both master and transactional data. I'm going to skip over to the right-hand side, which is the loading piece. So in this specific use case, we've got SAP that provide loading templates. So what we intend to do is extract the data through the connector or the manual table downloads, do this middle transformation piece, and then load back into either the system in S/4HANA or through templates that they've provided. And there's a number of different ways you can do that. The major focus I want to stress on is this middle layer piece of transform. And this is the difficulty that a lot of people that we've seen and spoken to typically face. So even though the extract and load is something that other providers and partners may help you with, but the transformation aspect is what a lot of clients are typically left to do themselves. So you're looking at redundancy of data, duplicates, incomplete data, and then transform and translating your data. Like I mentioned, because of the architectural differences, some of your data that may be in a specific format in your old system needs to change because for whatever reason there's dash and there's hyphens and other formatting that are required in the new S/4HANA system. In this transformation piece that we're looking to build, and what you see within our accelerators is that DQ aspect. So data quality is hugely important. Not only do we have workflows that do that for you, so immediately you can plug in your data and see the quality of your data, we then use the platform of Alteryx to do a lot of the data profiling. So immediately you can see issues with your data. Like I mentioned earlier, what we're looking to do as part of this middle piece, and I guess the whole end-to-end is make sure your data is ready to upload. So there's nothing else you're doing. It's all within this one platform. It's all going through very, very seamless, easy to follow method. And once it's built, it becomes reusable, and these building blocks become the foundation of any transformation program. We then, through our demo, we showed how we've done exception reports. So not only are you able to do the extract, transform, and load, you can then extract data out of your main workflow into another area where you're doing exception reports that business can review. And ultimately, the other point is reconciliation. This part is really, really important. What Alteryx in the demo provides is pure visibility of your data. You can see exactly where your join conditions are, where your select conditions are, where you've done some formulas and everything else. And all that is covered in depth in the first webinar that we have. Over to the next slide. And just to round off here then, after our demo, we've covered over the benefits and metrics of our accelerators. The first thing are some of the things, so the first couple are ones I've mentioned already. So first is about repeatability. So once you've built it once, these are building blocks that you can do again for any transformation program. These are ones that when you're working in a collaborative team, you can share some of the methodology, some of the business validation rules and so on. The second point here is around business control. What Alteryx and our accelerators provides is that visibility that empowers the finance business teams to take control of the data, understand the data, and therefore better prepare the data. The third part here is around data quality. So as I mentioned, you've got better accuracy. You can see where the errors are and naturally therefore reduce that. And then the fourth part is about reconciliation, all around being able to see your data. The last part here, naturally, those four things then create your time, effort, and cost savings. And what we've seen, and what Jitendra and Mahender will go into, is some of the program complexities. So depending on your volume data, we've seen within a medium to complex program a 40 to 70% reduction in time and effort. And naturally, that then translates to, in a project within SAP, millions in savings. Now, just to finally cover off is future sustainable benefits. Once you've built all of these things, you've built your transformation workflows, it becomes the accelerator for future rapid M&A enablement. You've got the wider uses of Alteryx, so it's not only a ETL tool, but the advanced analytics options around machine learning and predictive analytics. And the last thing is that Ultrix has a lot of Gen AI capabilities. So it isn't something that we've got these accelerators where you plug in, play, and just leave. You can then use the platform for future democratizing of your data and wider application for business use. I'm then going to hand over now to the next slide. Firstly is the Menti. So I'm going to give a minute or so, if it's okay for everyone, if possible, to either scan the QR code that you see on screen. My colleague Ayushi's also put in the link. So if you are struggling with the QR code, please feel free to click the link and go into that. And the question here is, what is the migration approach you have adopted or planning to adopt for S4 HANA transformation? So I'm going to let a minute. Alternative, you can go on menti.com and put in the 8-digit code that you see in the bottom left. And while before Ayushi sort of shares the answers to this Menti, I'm going to hand over the baton to Jitendra. That'll go over now to a deep dive on SAP migration itself.
Thanks, Fasil. Yeah, I think the way at least I was expecting, under evaluation takes more than 50% of the space. That's how the current reality looks like. All right, so maybe we move on to discuss a few ways how the total migration from one ERP system to S4 HANA can be categorized. So in general, probably all of us have heard these words in three different colors. These are classified: green field, brown field, and blue field. I will talk about each of these approaches in subsequent slides, but at a broad level, greenfield, as we all know, that you have an ECC system and you are maybe not very much satisfied, or you want to re-engineer your processes. You want to start from a clean slate. So those are the situations where you are practically building your S4HANA system from scratch. Of course, it gives a lot more opportunity to redesign and optimize, but it comes with a significant time, resources, and so on. The another one, brownfield, which is practically whatever you have got from a data perspective, from design perspective, practically all of that is technically transitioned into the S4HANA platform. So while it comes with goods and bads of your erstwhile ECC system, what it enables you is to give a futuristic platform to do all the different type of innovations, enrichment in your solution over a period of time, right? So that's typically a brownfield conversion, which is in general a bit cheaper, a less risky, and so on. But of course, it has got a certain limitations around what you can do, change, or what you cannot. Other than greenfield and brownfield, there are a lot of miscellaneous situations, which in a broad term we can call it a blue field. I don't know whether green and brown mixed becomes blue or not, but yeah, it is called a blue field. Now, here there are, it's not one single way of doing things. Like a green field is pretty much standardized, the approach, how you will approach it. Brownfield also is by and large the same thing, but bluefield have different type of context. For example, in certain situations, if you want to reduce your data footprint, let's say you have run your ECC system plus since 10-20 years or so, you're not happy with your data, or say you're not happy with some of your custom codes you have adopted. So in such situations, you may choose to a blue field, which is like, selecting sliced rice in different way. And I'll touch base upon on that in a subsequent slide. The another situation happens is usually with a larger organization. You may have more than one SAP system or SAP and non-SAP system. And you basically, what are you trying to do is you are trying to restructure and consolidate the systems. Many a times it is, even if it is same system, probably you want to have a different type of SAP organization structure. As you know, you have company codes, profit centers, chart of accounts, and different technical elements. If you want to tweak it, those are the things which are possible. And the third, which is more from a business perspective, comes in where you may have mergers, you may want to, there may be demerger situations, splitting, and so on. So that's the third category. Maybe I'll double click on each one of these. So start with the green field. If you move to the next slide, please. So typically in a green field, if you see on the left, the first broader category is whether you want to be on-prem or on cloud. Now, on-prem was the reality of the past. As we speak, everywhere, and practically each organization eventually is moving to cloud or will move to cloud. Exceptions are always there. In cloud, there are predominantly two major categories. One is called public cloud, another is private cloud. Now, the public cloud is like a multi-tenancy situation where you are basically having a less flexibility to change, modify the system. Whereas on the private cloud is pretty much it's your own space, just that instead of on-premise, it is going on cloud. The key things probably you would have heard: the grow with SAP and rise is with SAP. Now, rise with SAP is the the private cloud version of hosting, which is pretty much like the erstwhile on-prem. It's just that you're hosted on cloud and your method of licensing with SAP changes. So we'll talk about that a little later. On the right-hand side, if you see typically whether you are into private cloud or public cloud, the methodology is by and large same. There are different phases: discovery, preparation, explore, realize, and so on and so forth. And you are provisioning your different systems. Just so that usually the private cloud had this 3-tier landscape, like development, quality, production. At public cloud, when it started a few years back, it was a 2-tier landscape, just the quality and production. I think realistically, SAP has realized that 2-tier landscape, even for a small and medium sector business, does not work well. And that's where even the public cloud is moving from 2-tier landscape to a 3-tier landscape approach. In the next slide, let's see how the brownfield looks like. On the left hand side, it's a picture taken from SAP Marketplace, which basically tells the technical steps how you can convert from ECC to the S4HANA world. And of course, you are gradually phasing out your ECC systems like development, quality, production, and moving on to the S4HANA system. So the technical construct, how an ECC system will convert into S4HANA, there is only one way. There are tools provided by SAP, and whoever does it, barring some exceptions here and there, it is the same. The key pointers which we see normally is what you see on the right, where it requires main focus. The technology is just one part of it. Yeah. So whether it is the data governance, which Marcel has talked already, change management, innovation adoption. So ECC to S4, you can move in there. It's like you have upgraded to a very high class car, but you need to adopt those new features, or you could still probably use like your old car. So that adoption is very important. There are many cases you just move to S4 HANA, but then you say, what am I getting out of it? The point is, at least you have uplifted yourself, and then the wider innovations which S4 HANA brings is there, which requires a more a focused approach. For example, say user experience, where we have Fiori adoption. Now in S4 HANA, you may still choose not to use Fiori, but is that what are you getting value out of it? So those type of perspectives are usually important to consider here. Some other things, custom code, Wasil talked about that. Are you still carrying your technical debt from one system to another, or are you planning to rationalize and reduce that and move to more cleaner core? So these are the broader themes around the brown field. Now the less known blue field in the next slide is the rest others. So there are many different type of variations here, but broadly these are categorized into two categories: the shell conversion and mix and match. So without getting into much technical stuff, at a broad level, the shell conversion is that you are sort of making a upgraded S4 HANA. So you're taking everything and then you're sort of deleting and cleaning that template. Whereas in the mix and match, while you are building, you are selectively moving, what you want from your ECC to S4 template. So these are more, technical things. If you want to be much more selective, then you go for mix and match. But if you want to be adopting most of it and want to get rid of some elements, then shell conversion is one option. So having talked about these three broad heads, eventually what it means, on a comparative term. So in the next slide, so what we are trying to demonstrate here, that at a broad level, any organization trying to see that, what's the right option for me. So on these 7 key themes, if we see, first is on current design perspective. So usually the green field is the case where you are not too happy with your ECC design and you want to really change things. Then the green field is a good idea. But if you are happy with what you have, then probably brown field, blue field scores more. Custom code, same goes here. If you want to eliminate your technical debt, then green field is a good idea. But if those are very important to you and you have to retain, then of course brownfield. Business process reengineering, as I said, the maximum flexibility you have in greenfield and the minimum is the brownfield. Data, if you want to cleanse and optimize your data, then greenfield gives you a better choice, whereas the brownfield does not provide any type of data cleaning activity, and you are practically carrying everything to your more expensive S4HANA system. Time, of course, brownfield scores better here because it can be done in a faster way, because all your innovation adoption you are doing after you have migrated, right? So therefore, at least the transition is faster in a brownfield. Risk, as happens with high reward, high risk. So greenfield is a high reward and high risk perspective, and along with the risk, the cost is also higher for a greenfield implementation. So these are the broader themes, and each organization need to evaluate that, which parameter weighs more, which is more relevant, and based on that, an organization can take a call. Having said that, I just wanted to add one more perspective here, that this S4 HANA journey, on the next slide itself. Yeah, that it is not only a upgrade or a migration, there are some wider considerations also. For example, in S4 HANA, what you are opening up is your entire business model and network. So in today's world, uh, we see this e-commerce and very strong, and practically online instantaneous connectivity with your suppliers, with your customers, with governing bodies and so on. So those type of flexibilities is what you are eventually getting enabled by S4 HANA, including as we call it MACH architecture, right? Any type of, and S4 HANA, as you know, once you have it, it is not only the S4, you get a bundle of several other things like business technology platform, SAP Analytics Cloud, Fiori's, APIs. So the point is you have a much larger canvas for, adopting and innovating. It also poses wider questions. So it's not only ECC or S4. It is also about, do you want to move to cloud? Do you want to still stay on-prem, or you want to get into a hybrid thing? Do you choose a private edition or public edition? Uh, Also, as you know, SAP is completely revamping its licensing model. So earlier it was you buy one time and then you just pay an annual maintenance fee. But now it is subscription based, along with direct licenses, indirect licenses, and so on and so forth. So it's a very significant difference in the pricing. And of course, there is the cost perspective around that. Security and data, because you're more networked, and it comes with challenges. How do you ensure that your data is safe and secured? The third, the individual factors. Some of these I've already talked about, the cost and risk factors, how much complex and heterogeneous your existing systems are, uh, the in-house developments which are done. Is it a time to get rid of those, or these are so valuable that and so specific to your business that you still need to carry them into S4 HANA? And along with that, what type of resources and partners you need? Can you do fully in-house? Probably not. SAP, of course, supports there. What type of additional support or partners do you need? So that's the broader theme I wanted to speak around these three migration options. I'll hand it over to Mahendra, but before that, we have a Menti question, and then over to Mahendra. Thank you.
So I think, and thanks, Jitendra. One of the things that we wanted to understand, given we talked about the different migration approaches and options, and we heard, in the first Menti, that 56% of the participants are still considering evaluation. What are your key factors that you are currently evaluating to choose your S4HANA migration approach? And we've got a Menti on the, there's a Menti code. If you could just put your responses. Interesting. The time and cost is coming quite a few times. I see data being challenged, the time duration, couple of years. How do I establish a business case, value for investment, resources? So it's interesting challenges that I can see.
I think integrity, probably someone meant integration. I guess so.
New processes. So I guess I think looking at the challenges that we see in the previous Menti poll, and also in the first one where we saw 56% still evaluating. I think, based on what we've been hearing, everybody pretty much is in the same kind of a situation in terms of the evaluation. The challenges around time and cost, data, processes, how do we get benefit out of it? What should be our business case like? And that's where, one of the key things is a typical phase zero before you really embark on this entire journey. And what a phase zero typically would look like is across 5 different pillars, as the way we typically look at it. Now, the first and foremost thing is process, and we saw this as a response in the previous Menti question around streamlined processes, or probably not getting the full value out of it. The other important thing, I guess, is around process. The way SAP used to work in an ECC world versus the way SAP now operates in an S/4HANA. I think there's a lot of change, and the process itself, with the Fiori GUI, etc., the new features, the architecture, there is a different way of working now in S/4HANA world. And given the migration approaches, depending on whether you're taking a greenfield, brownfield, or a bluefield approach, what really should be your process? How should you look at the processes? What sort of an optimization should you do, or a streamlining of process should you do? How do you take the maximum benefit out of the investment that's going to happen in S/4HANA? These are all becoming real key considerations. And before you actually jump onto this, it's important to know what's available in S/4HANA. And that's also one of the challenges that we are seeing, where even from a knowledge or a talent perspective, knowing what's available in S/4HANA also, is a key challenge that we've been hearing from our clients. So, and one obviously is just the process change now. But given the entire release strategy and maintenance strategy of SAP, where now SAP is talking about coming with a release every 2 years, starting 2023, but they would be coming out with new feature packs, as SAP calls it, every 6 months, and which effectively means there would be new features and functionalities coming pretty much every 6 months from 2023 version of S/4HANA, and there would be a constant change, at least that's available, which can be adopted by organizations who are making investment in S/4HANA. And that again brings the point which Jitendra talked about, is innovation and adoption. So how do you keep updated in terms of what's available? What would be your innovation roadmap and adoption roadmap that you should plan as you're putting together the entire business case, or your maybe in the next 2 to 3 years roadmap on SAP S/4HANA? The entire change management would be a key element as you go through this entire journey. And what should be the OCM or change management approach? The communication, again, is critical. We've had a couple of, or we've been talking to our clients where we've seen everything has been done rightly, but the clients are struggling post go live, because they've not managed the change well. Data, I think Wassel talked about a lot on the entire data, the quality of data, how do you transform? If you're taking a brownfield approach and you've got a lot of legacy data which is sitting in your ECC, maybe it's something which you ideally would not want to carry forward. What does the data look like? What should be your strategy around the entire data? Given your future analytics, a lot of it is dependent on the data that's going to be available in your systems. So how do you assess that entire data quality, the logics for transformation? How do you govern that entire data is a key consideration. Solution design, new features, your future innovation roadmap, the user experience, integration touch points, as Jitendra talked about. It's not about S/4HANA. Today, we are living in a complex environment. There are so many other non-SAP applications which have a touch point. And pretty much when you go through such a migration journey or an upgrade journey, it impacts every of those touch points. and any of your changes in the core ERP application directly impacts these integrations, and it's important to have a strategy around how those integrations need to be managed. Your entire future analytics strategy, again, is a key factor in terms of how you're going to look at the entire data, what sort of future application, whether it's around the analytics from an SAP standpoint or any other analytics applications with AI, is important when you are deciding on the entire roadmap. Security and controls in S4HANA, the entire way you typically would look at controls from the traditional ECC world, there's a lot of change. So I think the way the architecture used to be in ECC versus now, that's changed, and hence the control environment has changed. Security, there is a lot of change even in the way you manage your roles and responsibilities. That's undergoing a change, and hence the entire security and controls is important. And again, a critical factor when you typically look at it from your audit or compliance framework or compliance requirements. And something, again, is an important factor as you put together your entire roadmap. Deployment strategy, I think we've talked about the different transition roadmaps. The implementation approach can vary. We heard, resource being a challenge, not just from an external provider perspective, but internal resources as well. How do you manage your internal, people from, getting them out from the regular BAU versus how do you then, look at managing it from the project standpoint, your entire future support standpoint. All of those are critical considerations. And at the end of the day, the entire cost benefit analysis, the critical success factors which are going to make your program a success, your entire customer experience, your user experience, all of these are again critical drivers in terms of putting together your overall business case. So Vasil, on the next one. So I think just to summarize, from our perspective, I think there was going to be 5 key things, probably, you need to plan carefully. It's a complex scenario right now. There are multiple options, greenfield, brownfield, bluefield, on RISE, on public cloud, on private cloud. It's a complex scenario. The key thing is you will need to focus on your end state as to what's the end outcome that you want to achieve as an outcome post your entire migration path. The entire journey can be very expensive if you get it wrong, and hence invest the time now in deciding what's going to be the right roadmap. Focus on the areas that I just talked about. Identify the impact, the larger impacts around your people, process, data, integration, where you'll get the maximum benefits post investing in, let's say, the entire S4HANA. So it's important, what are your big rocks that would get addressed post this entire migration? It's important. The fourth one is, it's not about just doing a migration or moving to S4HANA. It's important to how do you continue to keep innovating and adopting what's new that SAP is constantly going to release to get the maximum value out of the investments that's going to happen in S4HANA. And last, I think, is data. It's key for any future analytics, whether it's predictive, whether it's leveraging your AIs, LLMs, data, it's going to be the key. And have a right data strategy and a change adoption. All of those are key considerations in terms of deciding what would be your migration approach going forward. So with that, thank you so much. Thank you for taking out time for attending this webinar and listening. Michelle, me, the entire team, we are here to take any questions now, or you can write back to us. Our contact details are out there, and we'll be more than happy to address any specific scenarios. We do understand client scenarios can be very specific, and hence individual consideration needs to be given to all these factors. But we are more than happy to address and share our experience. If you have any questions at any point in time, now or even later, feel free to reach out to us.
Brilliant. On that note, Mahendra, so we have got the Menti link. The Ayushi's posted in the link, so you can ask those questions or feel free to use the chat. Mahendra, I want to put forward a question that David Hurd has asked. The question is, how different is phase 0 approach if the move to S4HANA is a more technical upgrade? Impact on processes at a functional layer, I imagine, is still significant.
So David, if you look at the phase 0, right, even if you're taking a technical migration approach, which is a brownfield approach, what would end up happening is once you are, let's say, live on your S4HANA, you would still be continuing to adopt the existing ways of working which you would have in your ECC. So even if you're taking a technical approach, it is still important to understand what's new that's available in S4HANA. How does that new change impact your existing legacy processes? Or what are the current pain areas or challenges or areas of improvement efficiencies in your processes in the current ECC, which can be addressed once you've moved to S4HANA. I talked about data. I talked about the security and controls. Each of those elements are still going to be critical for you, even if you do a technical upgrade. It's just that the timing is changing. You may not do that immediately as part of your technical upgrade, but you would still need to have a future roadmap to address all those areas.
Maybe if I just add, Mahendra, to what you said. So David, the phase 0, which we are calling, fundamentally, it is about deciding whether you should do a technical upgrade, which is a brownfield, or a greenfield, or some other routes are more appropriate. So it is about evaluating the right strategy. That's the phase 0 concept. Now, let's say that eventually the decision is that it will be a technical upgrade, which is the brownfield. The problem is that at the very first instance, just by upgrading from ECC to S4, probably you are not justifying the shift from ECC to S4, because while there are some changes, but predominantly you are still living in the old world. Yeah. And after the upgrade, there is a significant focus requirement that how do you then innovate and adopt the much wider and innovative functionalities around S4. So if you just upgrade and then leave it at that, then probably that's not the right thing to do, right? So that's where this phase 0 concept comes first in evaluation, and then even if you're deciding for upgrade, then what do you want to do after the upgrade? Yeah, because the journey doesn't stop there.
So I think we've got a couple of more questions around on Menti. We're currently on a lower version of S4HANA on-prem, SAP suggesting move to RISE. What do you think should be our approach to move to RISE? An interesting question. And again, if you look at from a roadmap perspective, SAP is now giving different options to clients. So if suppose somebody is on a lower version of S4HANA, what SAP is doing is if you move to RISE now, or then pretty much there's an extended support that's available from SAP and without any additional cost. Versus if the clients choose to decide that they'll continue to be on-prem and still be available using the older version or the previous versions of S4HANA, there's an additional cost, an additional fee that needs to be paid to SAP for the extended maintenance period. So it's important, again, that you look at it both from a cost perspective as well as the value, even from a future standpoint. So for example, from 2023 onwards, the release period or maintenance release is now 7 years. compared to all the previous versions where the maintenance release was for 5 years. So the choice is entirely yours. You can continue to be on the lower versions. SAP is providing the extended support for all these lower releases till 2025. And for 2023 onwards, the extended maintenance for the release is 7 years. What are the advantages of moving to S4 given the cost to migrate? S4 obviously comes with a lot of new features and functionalities. The architecture is entirely different. The landscape is pretty simplified. However, from an advantage or benefit versus a cost, I think there are a lot of factors that need to be evaluated. I don't think there's one straight answer to say SAP would give you a lot of benefit just because you're migrating. That needs to be individually evaluated from the respective individual situations. What part of my business will change the most from migrating? Again, I would say it's an individual situation. Very difficult to just say, a process would change or, data would change. That again needs to be evaluated for your individual scenario. And again, we are more than happy to evaluate and support in terms of what that really means from your perspective. We are considering moving away from SAP to an alternative. Can you advise on suitable solutions? This is mainly due to the cost and complexities of SAP. And it's again an interesting bill. This is not the first time that we are hearing this. Every client is also going through multiple such evaluation scenarios. And cost and complexities, I guess, just one element of this entire decision-making process. There are many other factors that go into this entire evaluation. And again, this is something we are supporting our clients and more than happy to provide, what could be your options. Do you offer process discovery and improvement planning? Absolutely, and that's one of the key aspects as part of our entire overall phase 0. Do you support phase 0 even if there's a different SI from Protiviti? The whole approach around phase 0 is irrespective of a system integrator. Your system integrator could be anybody. For us, I think it's more about what you are getting out of the investment that you are going to make in your S4HANA journey. And that's where we believe the entire phase 0 is really critical. Because that then gives you an assurance and confidence that when you are moving to the S4 approach or journey, you've taken an informed decision, factoring in all elements of people, process, data, technology, and your future innovation and adoption roadmap.
Yeah, maybe
we're there on time.
Over.
But if there are any last questions, more than happy to take, or you've got our contact details out there on the slide. The recordings will be shared with you. Post this session as a follow-up email. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions, or if you believe there's any area where you think we are open to discussing as well. So thank you so much. I guess with that, thank you so much for taking out time for attending this.